All right, awesome. This is going to be interesting. We're live, and as you guys know, I'm an artist as well as a dad and art director and all that fun stuff. So whenever I do these live streams during the day, you're going to hear a lot of noise because my art studio is literally out in our living room. so we should be able to hopefully like get some art done. I finally kind of rigged a little bit of a setup. We'll see how well it works. I'm gonna try to kind of angle things so that you can kind of see them as I work on it. But this panel is what I want to get done. And Frank was saying an afternoon stream. Yes, an afternoon stream. So anyhow, I'm going to be trying to do these a little more often, a little more frequently, like more casual kind of hangouts. And we can all do art together and have fun and see how things go. And then hopefully just kind of you guys will be cool with like the sounds of family and all sorts of excitement in the background. I got my coffee ready. I should explain who I am for anybody watching this after the fact. I'm going to have a sip of this coffee real quick. All right. Frank was saying we are now the Nooners. I love it. And Frank, let me know what you're working on, man. How's life going? How is everything with Captain Goggles? And then I don't. Oh my goodness, I can't pronounce what is being asked, so I don't know what that is. I apologize, Arthur. I only I have no access to like my translator or anything. But anyhow, hopefully all is well. All right, so anyhow, so everybody should check out. Frank is joining us in the chats. Frank Salazar, a really inspiring guy, always working on his Captain Goggles like mini comics, and just is like constantly working on comics, which is kind of what this channel and like the Art Casters, the show I do with Scott Strickland and Corey Kerr, and the 48-hour art check and all that stuff is all about. So, which is like working on comics and stuff. So anyhow, I should explain who I am. I'm Joshua Kemble. This is my channel where I talk about the process of like working on my graphic novels. Right now, what I'm working on is this book, this page. This is page 3 for 2 stories. Book 2, which book 1 is available on Amazon for a decent amount. I'm hoping that we get some. There we go. I just fixed the focus on this, but yeah, book 1 is available on Amazon for like a really reduced rate. You can check out 2 stories. Joshua Kemble. Here, let me grab a little bit of that book so I can show it to you. So 2 stories, book 1. It's 128 or 120 something page graphic novel that's hand lettered, hand inked, and then it deals with issues of faith and mental illness. And Arthur said he's from Brazil. Frank is being my translator, which is awesome. Thank you. Welcome from Brazil, Arthur. It's nice to meet you, man. Yeah, so this is the stream where I'm working on book 2, and then I'm also going to be promoting a new book, which actually I'll show you guys a little sneak peek because I literally inked this about a month ago. But this book cover, these are the original inks. This is the book cover for Jacob's Apartment, book 1, which is also coming out in May of 2022, but you can pre-order it now. And that's 136 page full color graphic novel about the pursuit of dreams and the questions that can shake even the strongest of faith and young love. And it's like a slice of life story. And I really recommend everybody check that out at graphicmundi.org. Graphic Mundi is the publisher that's putting that out. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. I also have been like a professional artist for over 15 years. And And yeah, this live stream, usually when I do these, it's a way for us to work, hang out, and it's kind of like a way to get art done in the studio. So, so yeah, so I'm gonna get going. My goal on this stream is just to finish this panel, and then I'm probably gonna take my son to the park afterwards, and then I'll probably hit another live stream as I'm inking like the next page. But right now, I'm just trying to kind of finish page 3. I am gonna have a really busy year as a creative ahead of me because I have to finish this book, and then I have another book that's coming to fruition. We're about finished with the deal for that, and so in the next 2 years, I have to kind of finish 2 graphic novels, which is sort of insane. So that's a little bit about me. If you're new to joining the channel, welcome. Make sure you're subscribed, you've hit the bell, all that fun stuff, and then I'm just going to kind of hang out and talk about some of my thoughts and stuff like that whilst working on stuff. So yeah. Anyhow, let's see. Oh, Frank said, I'm about to get on my computer. I uploaded a design to Teespring last night, a mask woman tee. I'm going to go over a Captain Goggles design. That's awesome, Frank. And you guys should, if you're subscribed to my channel and you enjoy it, I definitely recommend you guys subscribe to Frank's channel as well. He's got a show called Tarako Creative Cast that he does with Mask Woman. And it's a really good show. And like they talk a lot about creativity and art and all that fun stuff. All right. I'm definitely in need of coffee. Part of why I do night streams, I tend to be creative at night, and I'm trying to, especially on weekends, really kick up into full gear on working pretty much at all available hours possible, because I just absolutely have to hit the deadlines that I need to hit. Let's see here. Okay. So I'm going to get this going. And if you guys have any questions as you're watching this, or you want to chime in the chats, I really recommend. A lot of people watch these live streams after the fact too. So if you have anything to promote that's hopefully safe for work, please please do so. Feel free to like throw in your links, or let me know like what you guys are working on in the chats as well. And we'll get going. We'll get moving on this crazy business called comics. So yeah, it's been a really exciting week. This was the first week where I was able to talk about Jacob's Apartment. And that was actually my first graphic novel that I ever completed. I had done short form comics before, but it was the first like long form story. And it was pretty ambitious for like a first try, because a lot of people for like their first graphic novel will choose to go in black and white, or will sort of simplify, like the plot. And it was a pretty complex undertaking where I was kind of dealing with a lot of weird themes that, like the interweaving of dreams in your sleep versus like the dreams in reality. And it was just like it was a pretty harrowing project to work on. It took me years to do, and I got to a point, like initially when I was working on it, I had a publisher for it who actually ended up dropping it kind of last minute, and so that book has kind of sat dead for quite a few years, until I had finished my second graphic novel, which was 2 stories, book 1. And when that got picked up for publication, we decided, my literary agent and I kind of made the decision to like repitch Jacob's Apartment. And of course, this was the first time I had pitched it with my literary agent. And then the cool thing was like it just got picked up, which was like really exciting because it's a book I feel really good about. I put a lot of work in, blood, sweat, and tears, and all that fun stuff that comes with like doing these things. And it was just so exciting to have a publisher that not only like picked it up, but like totally understood it, gave really good editorial feedback that made it better. And just overall, like it was a really positive experience and a really exciting thing. But then what's funny in the book publishing world, as opposed to like self-publishing, is there's a lot of like quiet where you aren't able to talk about what's going on. Because like, you know, a lot of it has to do with, I think, I'm speculating here, but I'm guessing a lot of it has to do with distributors and kind of making sure you have all your distribution set up and your release date and catalogs, because a lot of publishers like release catalogs to librarians and different bookstores and distributors to order from. And they kind of don't want you like letting the cat out of the bag for like, you know, what's coming up before the official announcements. And so anyhow, needless to say, like Jacobs, I've been sitting quietly knowing I have this news to drop for about over a month, over 2 months actually. And we had finished a lot of stuff, including the cover. And I couldn't show it to anyone or talk to anyone about it. And so, and I'm in that position with another potential project right now, but it's like such an interesting, I don't know, for me, it's been a really interesting journey, because it's been a really good year of a lot of doors opening that were closed prior. And for, I think, anyone kind of doing this independent comics kind of thing, I think you guys can relate to that, like how, you know, you can try and make these things and work really hard, and sometimes like you don't get a lot of traction. And this is definitely a year where like it just feels like all the barriers have kind of disappeared. Frank said, I've been meaning to ask another creative their thoughts on promotion, the do's and don'ts of getting your comic or other product out there. Sometimes I get people DMing me links to their crowdfund, but it's the first time ever saying anything to me. Lately, it's been as soon as I accept their friend request. It's hard to have etiquette when it comes to self-promotion, but I definitely wouldn't go about it that way. I mean, it depends, right? Like with a press release, you are kind of doing what you just described, Frank, which is like, you know, with press releases, you're kind of sending out like bulk mailers to different press contacts and stuff saying, hey, this thing is releasing. If you want to do interviews or anything like that, I'm available. Here's why you should like the book. And you are kind of doing more like indirect marketing that doesn't have as much to do with relationships. Although I think even in those cases, it doesn't hurt if you have a relationship with the person that you're asking to like have you on their channel or promote your stuff. But yeah, I think like what you're describing, Frank, that doesn't sound like a press release. That sounds like a mass spam campaign. And I don't think anyone responds well to those things. We did like an episode kind of about that topic with our friend, our mutual friend, Gary Hodges of Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, where we kind of talked about there's like a kind of stark difference between being desperate and being hungry. And like in our industry, it's a really hard thing, like what I just described with Jacobs, right? Where it's like you spend, 5 years on something, every free minute you have, and then you finally finish it, and you're so excited about it that you want other people to talk about it and promote it, and you want to tell everyone in the world about your product because you're like really excited about it and you spend a lot of time on it. But there's this fine balance, because like if you're too desperate to get people to kind of check out your stuff, it can like have a counter balancing effect where people sense that desperation, and like, I don't know, people aren't really drawn to desperation. Like you almost want to, I don't know. This is just my thoughts, Frank. And if I'm not answering your question well, let me know. But it's like, I almost view it like dating, where it's like, you like, if you ask somebody on a date and you seem to be just this really desperate kind of creepy person, like the likelihood of them being like yes is really slim, because human beings have this tendency to, like, you can read desperation in a person and it's just like a toxic feeling you get. I don't know if it's like an evolutionary thing where, like, maybe just the way we developed with tribes, like, it's like, it's not necessarily the best thing about human beings that we're turned off by like total desperation, because sometimes people really do need help and are desperate, right? But the point being, if you're trying to promote art, you want to kind of exude confidence in your product. And it's the same if you're doing sales for anything, right? Can you imagine like going to a car dealer and you're looking at cars and they're just like desperately like just pushing cars on you? Maybe your friend's a car salesman and like every time you guys hang out, all they want to talk about is trying to sell you a car. Like eventually you're going to kind of make a distance from that person, because like it's just like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's just like not a good feeling to just have like a product like shoved in your face all the time. So my point is, like, be passionate and be hungry, be willing to talk about your stuff like constantly. I would say be even shameless with your self promotion, right? Like, because that's the other end of the coin, right? Where imagine going to a car dealer where like they don't talk at all about the car, and you're like, well, do you sell cars? And they're like, I guess. Like you're also not going to have confidence in like buying that car, because you're like, wow, they're not even confident about this thing that they're asking me to spend money on. Like, why should I be confident in it? So it's like, it's this kind of weird thing of like, you have to promote to sell books. Like at the end of the day, that's just the name of the game. Even with a publisher, like quite often the publisher is not going to do all the walking for you, right? Like, and honestly, even if they do a lot of work to promote it, they're really going to appreciate, an artist or a writer who is willing to go the extra mile, who's willing to fly to conventions, who's willing to kind of do interviews and really like push the book, like to give it the best shot ever. And that's going to also inspire your publisher or like people who are buying the product to see like, hey, this person's like really willing to put their money where their mouth is. Like they believe in this product or this book. So it's like, it's a fine line between like, obviously, yeah, mention your products, push your products, promote, what you do, be proud of what you do, but also don't be like this annoying banging gong that's just constantly, like pushing products. And like, Frank, what you were just describing, we had a really good episode actually of Artcasters with you, Frank, about community building. And I think that you're a really good example of somebody who really builds relationships and sincerely cares about other people. And that I think is a much more effective marketing strategy, right? Because Frank, I think if you were like constantly spamming me with like like, hey man, like check out my products, and you have like no interest in stuff I was doing, I wouldn't have had that moment like at the very beginning of the stream where I see you jump on stream and I'm just instantly promoting you because I know you're a good dude. So like, just the fact that you're part of the community, you contribute to the community, you like support other artists and stuff, it makes me, without any, you don't even have to ask me, I'm just going to instantly, like, anytime you're in chat, be like, you guys should check out Tarocco Creative, because that's what you guys do. Like, you guys support other artists and you're sincerely into comics, and that sincerity I think is really it's like addictive and cool, and really like just like kind of the example of that positivity and the way, I guess it's just like a really good example of like what I was talking about. So Frank, sorry that was long-winded, but really good question. that's something I think about a lot. And I will say it's not like as an artist, I haven't had moments where I am like super desperate, you know, especially when I was freelance. Um, you know, I did freelance for about 15 years. And I will tell you, you know, I mean, long ago, there were years, and I mean years, you know, where I like needed money, you know, and like, it's like, when the rent's due and you have that pressure above your head and like bills and relationships and like people who are relying on you, um inevitably, if you're in a situation where, oh my gosh, now I'm going to get into like um I love that. Frank was just saying, do you like goggles and comics? Here's my Kickstarter. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good example of like the way. I mean, yeah, that, like, again, if it's a spam thing where somebody's just hopping in a chat that they've never like participated in, and they're just like, hey, look at my stuff, like, that's a little weird. Even if it were more natural, where it's like you kind of initially are like, hey, what's up, you guys make comics? Oh, that looks cool. Like, kind of guiding the conversation like to where it's like more natural to kind of plug your stuff. But quite often, like, especially on art streams like this kind of thing where it's like a live stream, like, dude, I'm hanging out with other artists and like other creatives and stuff, and so like I'm naturally just like curious what everyone's working on, and so like inevitably, like, if somebody hangs out like on my live streams or anything like that, like, I'm gonna naturally want to know what they're working on and hear about it. It also is fun because it gives me stuff to talk about while I'm working on art, um so yeah, I don't know, but it is tough because, like I said, I relate to people feeling desperation, because, again, like, being an artist or being in this field, like, there will be seasons of desperation. And so like half the battle is like fighting that desperation and being like, no, I'm going to be confident in what I do. And I'm going to succeed. Like, it's almost like a sales strategy where, like, hey, if you're a salesman, like, and you're doing door-to-door sales, thank God no one I know recently has had to do that. That's like one of the worst sales jobs to ever have to work, but it's like, if you're a salesman and you're stuck doing like cold calling or door-to-door sales or whatever, and you're having like a really down month, like, it it's going to be really hard to like be confident in your product, be like, have like a good mental attitude to where you could generate sales, because people are going to read this like strained desperation, and so, like, again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like, I do think, um, you know, like, having some faith in what you're doing, and you know, if you're like me and you're kind of like a believer, it's like having faith in God to like kind of take care of you and get you through like hard seasons and stuff. Like, that helps a lot. Because, again, then you can kind of approach those situations without desperation, but with passion and interest, which I think is contagious. So, yeah, so that's a really long-winded, sorry, Frank, that was a really long-winded answer, but really good question, man. Really insightful. Um, I can definitely say, like, that's always a little off-putting when you have somebody just kind of hop on your channel. Um, and of course, anybody on YouTube knows like those moments of like, you get comments on your video, and then every once in a while you get this weird comment from somebody who's never been on your channel, and they're like, oh, that's cool, you support comics, you should come and like support my Kickstarter or whatever. And you're like, dude, I like, and especially when their comment shows they didn't even watch the video, like, anyhow. So, yeah, that's a really, I don't know, that's a fascinating topic. How do you kind of react to that, Frank? Like, when people do that, on your show? But generally, like, you know, most people I'll contact when like I have something coming out. Like, I'm probably gonna have to do a press release and a little bit of a marketing push for Jacobs, like coming up. And that will also probably include some like, you know, some personal messages to like people in my network that are directly in my network saying, hey, this thing's coming out, you know, if you want to help like push the product and stuff. But I'm really careful with those interactions, and I make sure it's like somebody that I support and that I'm like kind of I know are like interested or invested in what I do, you know. Because I think if that just comes blindly, again, it's just like an off-putting thing. So anyhow, I'm actually pretty excited because I think this panel is not going to take that long. But for anybody who's watched my live streams before, sometimes that can be like the statement of doom, where I'm like, oh, this isn't a complicated panel. I'm also curious for anyone who's watching, would it be more convenient if the area my head were like on a different side so you could see more of the inking? Or maybe if like I did these in the future without, you know, showing my face at all. I'm trying out like different formats for the live stream, and I'm kind of trying to figure out like what works best for you guys, the people who watch this, like either after the fact or like currently. And yeah, it'd be fun to like know what your suggestions are when it comes to that kind of thing. Let's see here. But yeah, promotion, I think in art, like for me, that's probably one of the things I struggle the most with. And I think a lot of creatives are there where it's like, you know, we kind of like the struggle to make the work. We're familiar with that. Like, you know, especially when you've been working in comics or working on in a creative field for a long time, you get pretty comfortable with some of the insecurities of making art. Like, you know, sitting down to kind of work on art always kind of starts with like almost like a compromise where you're like, you have to kind of be comfortable with like failure. You're going to be like sitting down to draw something. If you're too tight and too concerned, like what I'm doing right now, inking, right? I know a lot of artists, especially when I was younger, that would get freaked out about inking their work because they'd be like, oh no, now I'm like committing what I'm doing and it's like permanent. And they'd get like freaked out by like the permanence of it. There's a lot of weird things about like kind of the process of making art, and we get super used to that. But then also like, yeah, I think we get more comfortable with it because we spend a lot more time doing that than like promoting our work in theory. Maybe other people have like the reverse problem, you know, but in general, I think a lot of us spend more time on our art than we do like promoting our art. And I think to get good at art, you almost have to do that. So it kind of makes sense that we'd be more naturally comfortable with like the vulnerability and the bravery kind of required to do art. But like when it comes to like showing up on a show and like talking about your work and like promoting it and stuff, it's a really uncomfortable thing. So I also can understand why some artists are like, you know, doing that whole quick thing. Crimson Owl, yeah, we got Crimson Owl Comics. Ronnie Gunter, really awesome horror cartoonist, has a really good YouTube show, and you guys should all be subscribed to him. And then we got Jake Pfister joining us. Jake, how you doing, buddy? How are the comics coming, man? And then Frank was saying I have guests on most of the time, so I asked them to promote something, even if it's a link to their site. But I like to get to know them during that conversation. Yeah, that's a really good point. And then Frank said, I haven't had people do too much in the comments and chats except for spam bots. and I just block those. Lately, it's been direct messages on Facebook or Instagram. So I just say and I think it's going to continue. But like what he was saying, yeah, it's interesting. And then Frank says he checks out their link, and then I'll tell them to check out my link. I think that's a good approach too. Also because, maybe the person like is a little socially awkward, but they're promoting something really good. So I often will do that too. But I will say, like, sometimes when it's a direct message and it's somebody I don't really know, and especially if it's just you need to check this out. It's like, and it's clearly like a cut and pasted thing. Like that can be really tough to like have a desire to kind of check it out. Jake was saying grinding through. So Jake, what's your latest goal, man? Like, cause it's been a while since I've talked to you, man. What's your grind right now? Like, what are you trying to get done? So I'm drawing an eyebrow, and I also need to make a note because this is a little bit of a dead tip. So I probably need to order a new 8 or look through my backstock. I usually, when I'm working with like microns, I usually have 2 of each at minimum, so that like when I start having like a dead tip of it, I can just toss it and go on to the next. That's one of the reasons I like microns as opposed to like ruling pens or repeatographs. They're just very easy to kind of like, the second they start kind of not working, you just toss them and grab the next. But right now I'm kind of committing the cardinal sin of like, I'm going to kind of use this for the juice that I have left in it. Also knowing that a lot of this is going to be gone over with brush afterwards. And so a lot of this is okay to have lines that have kind of some thick and thin going. But mental note for myself, I might need to get myself another 8. I don't use 8s too much. I use them on like an extreme close-up like this. And then I'll also use them quite often for my panel borders. So it kind of makes sense that I wouldn't have noticed that it might be due time to get a new one of these. So I might pick that up at the store later today. I know, exciting stuff, guys. My 8 is dry. Let's see. Man, Jake is so hilarious. Jake was saying he's hanging and dangling, which is hilarious. And then let's see. Frank said, Ronnie, cool, can't wait to read the next page installments. Ooh, so we got an update. He's going great on his art. That's good. Yeah, I can't wait either. Oh, and Ronnie said, finished that death scene. Ooh. I love that. All right. I'm excited. So I think that I don't know, like, how do you guys handle your line art and stuff too? Do you guys like stock up with like backups, or are you mostly just like completely transitioned to digital? I don't know why I am so obsessed with guitars. This is just a weird little side note. I got a Gibson SG, which is a really nice guitar, earlier in the year, and in the last like few days I've caught myself like looking at more guitars online. And I don't know what it is about guitars, and maybe this is just a common thing with guitarists. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see what's going on with that. But I do know that like okay, interesting. I do know that like a lot of guitarists I know are kind of the same way, where it's like you kind of can't own enough guitars. But I kind of recognized it like yesterday. I was like just looking into all these different guitars, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't even need a guitar. Like I like looking at guitars. It's an insane thing. Victor came in. How's it going, Victor? Welcome. Jake said, I haven't drawn traditional in a long time, but I am egging for taking a stab with my nibs. I think nib is something I definitely want to try out. Like, I kind of have my set tools for book 2 of 2 stories, which is like what I'm working on here. I want to kind of keep the look and the style consistent. You know, and like that'll kind of run through book 2. But I think that at some point, you know, if I have a new book, that's not one of the ones. There's a top secret project I can't talk about too much, but that one is, if that were to have something that I couldn't talk about, that won't be for a couple years, and that one's going to be pretty much all digital, which is really interesting, and done in a little bit of a different style, with a little bit more rendering. So it's going to have more of like a like black and white but rendered kind of vibe to it, with like maybe solid color tones over it. But if I have another project after that, which I plan on doing cartooning for a long time, so I might have to like touch base with nibs, because nibs are awesome. And I feel like there's like respect. I don't know. For me, I instantly respect the cartoonist that uses a nib. I can't explain it. I don't know if it even has a logical reason behind it, but I just feel like you earn street cred by using nibs. Frank said I stock up. I bought more markers since I've been coloring a lot of cards. I've been doing mostly digital, but I print out my comics and cards, so I need to have a paper supply handy. Yeah. And then Frank was saying, Victor, your dinosaur sketches are looking great. Yes. And Ronnie said, if I did anything traditional, it'd be a one-time art print. Yeah. It's going to be interesting, because I've been working on stuff traditionally for so long that the book that I'm going to be probably working on in tandem with this book, once all our details are ironed out. And you guys might end up seeing little sneak previews of that on live streams. You may have seen sneak previews of that on previous live streams. But anyhow, when I'm working on that, that'll be digital. And so hopefully it'll have enough difference between that and what I'm doing for 2 stories to where I won't burn out kind of working on 2 graphic novels at once. So, yeah. And right now I know this is just the color fill portion of the page, so it's not like the most exciting stuff. But it is what it is. Let me kind of move this. Trying to kind of keep my camera aligned on my light so that you guys can kind of see a little bit more what I'm working on. Hopefully that's working out okay. We'll see. You can kind of get this. Let's get that kind of as set up as possible. Jake said, I've flirted with doing a bone meal woodcut print. Woodcut's amazing, man. One of my favorite artists of all time, this isn't like a big shock if we mention woodcut, is Albrecht Durer. And not his paintings, because I'm not a big fan of Durer's paintings. But his woodcuts are like, I mean, it's like mind-boggling what that guy was doing with woodcuts. And there's like this whole thing, I guess, where he was competing with Schongauer, who I think was using like etching. And Durer was just such a badass that at that point he was like, yeah, what you're doing with this new technology that can achieve more detail, I'm going to achieve even more detail in the old technology using woodcut. So yeah. Anyhow, it's one of those really like inspiring stories. And I do think there's a look to woodcut that's just like really cool. I don't know. I think it might also be like that negative and positive relief kind of effect you can get. It's very neat. And then Brianna said, hey, how's everyone going? We're doing pretty good. How are you, Brianna? Let's see here. So, fill in blacks. This is like the least exciting part of inking to me. But it is kind of important to get out of the way. So I also am kind of weird with my pages because there's so many pages to do for Two Stories Book 2, and I'm trying to get them done pretty quick. I'm actually going to be doing less touch-up of my large areas of black than usual, because I noticed that this line was getting a little wonky, so do some test lines till it's loaded again. There we go. So yeah, I basically am going to be doing let's see here, a lot more just filling the blacks and not doing. Usually what I do is like do a second pass over like a solid area of black like that, so that it's like a nice rich black on the original page. And I will probably do that when I'm about to scan all the pages, but that'll be, you know, once I have the 100 and whatever of these inked and ready to rock, and then I'll kind of batch that all so that I have nice solid blacks. It is good to do that though, like especially before you scan if you're working in black and white, because it's quicker to just do a second pass over your black color fills like manually, your big areas of black, than it will be to do it physically or digitally. And this is something when I used to teach at Laguna College of Art and Design, I would have people do traditional inking for like a comic assignment, and people would 9 times out of 10, students who hadn't worked traditionally would just kind of assume like, oh, I'll fix that digitally, and not realize that like quite often like fixing traditional is quicker to fix traditionally than to fix digitally. And whatever you think you're going to fix in post, I think people who do film editing get this too. It's like the better your footage, the less time it takes in the back end. The worse your like film or like your raw material, like the longer it's going to take you digitally. And sometimes it might actually take longer than just getting it right the first time. And I definitely have seen people do that with inks, where they'll, you know, kind of be like, oh, I'll fix that in post. And then they end up kind of creating a nightmare for themselves because they aren't inking like cleanly enough. I don't know if that makes sense, but rambling. And then let's see. Frank said, I've toyed with having a Tarocco stamp made so I can just stamp one of my designs on cardstock with my info. I think that's a smart idea. I like that. Let's see. Frank also said, let's see. Okay, Frank was saying, oh, talking to Dory. Okay, I got it. Or Brianna and talking about Dory's stream. And then, yeah. Crayola and Prismacolor are famous artists. Oh man, I'm missing I'm missing a lot of stuff here. But yeah, I don't know. I found that really enlightening when I first started kind of dipping into traditional inks, was that like a lot of like the better you can get it like traditionally, like on the original page, like the easier of a time you're gonna have with cleanup and scanning and all that fun stuff. It's another reason I work like really big pages, you know, because I like to be able to kind of try to get it right like the first time, you know. This is gonna be an eyebrow. So what's funny, this will probably be another stream. Like I've noticed this on most of the time when I'm working on panels, where I'll be like, oh, this will be a really easy, quick panel to do on the stream. And then it turns out to not be the case at all. I feel like that kind of probably helps with like creating art. Like, I wonder if you guys agree with this, but I feel like sometimes it's like we almost need to have amnesia for like how much work it is, where we're just like, oh yeah, that'll be quick and easy. And if you can kind of fool yourself into thinking that over and over again, you can finish a graphic novel. Totally rambling there, but let's see. Brianna said, you mentioned Albrecht Durer, which made me think of watercolor pencils and how it was obvious they were named for an artist, but Frank pointed out it was less obvious in the best way. That's true. I didn't even know there was like a Durer. Is there a Durer colored pencil? Oh, okay. So my sister just chimed in off camera. She used to work at an art supply store called Art Supply Warehouse, and she just basically was like, "Yep, our store used to sell them." So there we go. Confirmed, and she said they're also very high quality, which is really cool to know. I kind of feel like I might have known that, but I don't really know if I knew that. But that's cool to know. I know there's like a lot of brushes. You know, there's like a Da Vinci, and isn't there a Rembrandt? There's a Rembrandt brush. Yeah, so that makes sense. Maybe that should be our goal as cartoonists, is to like get so known in our niche field. Like, to me, I would be massively successful, which, by the way, this would never happen because there's so many good cartoonists. But to me, the sign of like ultimate success, as like, can you imagine if like, because I use the Pentel Pocket brush pen so much, if they just Pentel approached me and were like, we're going to call it the Kemble, like that would be amazing. Of course, a lot of these people like Durer and Rembrandt and Da Vinci and stuff, they kind of had to be alive. Like, I guess they had to be dead for quite a long time before people. Well, I don't know. Some of them were pretty famous in their own lifetimes. But yeah, Durer's stuff, especially if you look at, he did like a whole series on the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse that are like, anytime I like feel like I'm getting a little too cocky, like I'm like, oh yeah, I finally nailed my craft or whatever, all I have to do is pull up those like wood blocks and be like, yeah, I suck. Because like there's things he does with like the way that Durer does clouds, it's I don't think I've ever seen anyone else handle clouds better in black and white. And this is a guy who was like doing this far before like inking was like a common, practice and replicated print. And like he just nailed it. Like I don't see a lot of people handling clouds that well. But anyhow. All right, let's see here. And then Frank said, one day there will be Salazar artist's goggles. I love that. And then Brianna was confirming the Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils. They are great quality. That's cool. Watercolor pencils are rad because you can kind of draw like with watercolors and then kind of hit it with water, and like you draw as if you're drawing with colored pencils, and then you can make those into washes and stuff. That's pretty amazing. But it is funny. My wife used to work at an art store too, so I think her and her sister are gonna overhear me attempting to talk about art tools and be like, there's a Bruce Lee pencil. Well, I want that pencil because that would be a badass pencil. I feel like Bruce Lee anything is pretty awesome. I didn't even realize that, like this subconscious effect that Bruce Lee had on my psyche. But I even buy shoes quite often because there's a specific brand of shoes that I'm now blanking out on, and it's literally the brand of shoes I have. And part of why I wear them is it was Bruce Lee who wore them. Now I don't wear like the yellow colored shoes like they were in the film, but I still wear that same brand just because Bruce Lee was so cool. Let's see here. Frank said, I used some watercolor pencils from the dollar store. They're my favorite medium. I love how much control they provide. I will tell you sometimes, those plastic watercolor kits sometimes. And my wife will kill me for saying this because she knows how to really watercolor. But I feel like sometimes I prefer those to like the really expensive watercolors. Because like those little plastic kits, like there's something really, I didn't hear what I think she said something about Winsor Newton. I forget the brand she gets too. She has like a really nice brand that has like these just gorgeous colors. But yeah, for me, when I've watercolored, there have been times where I just I like the little cheapo kit. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't use the brush with it, like that little throwaway brush with the little plastic kits, but sometimes that's been fun. The limitation of it, I think, is pretty fun. But I also don't watercolor a lot. Let's see. Brianna said, next to gouache and Unipasco pens, watercolor pencils are my favorite medium. I used to like gouache, and I can't stand gouache anymore. But early in illustration, the program I went into, everything we did, every assignment was in gouache. And so you kind of like, I have like a love-hate relationship with gouache. And then when I see stuff like by like Mary Blair that's done in gouache, where I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful, and the color's so rich, and like there is a really cool thing with gouache, but it is a pain in the butt to use. And there's like a technique to it. It's like, well, you probably know, Brianna, but it's like you have to kind of find this like sweet spot with the gouache where it's almost like it pretty much has to be mixed to the consistency of milk. to really lay gouache down well. Because then you're taking advantage of it more than, just kind of making it like pretend to be watercolor or whatever. So it's still got like some opaqueness to it, but like I don't know. I still remember like those times where I had the consistency a little bit less than milk or a little more than milk, like with like how thick the balance of water and pigment was. And you'd try to lay it and it just wouldn't lay flat. Like it's a very difficult medium that I think like a few people have mastered. And when you master it, it's a good one. But I haven't really returned to gouache in a long time, because it was also a bit of a pain, and it doesn't lay as opaquely as like acrylic or oil, but it does. I mean, the color is really brilliant. But to get back to that, I'd have to like start buying some Crescent illustration board. Peter just joined us and said, "Hey, it's that Jacob's apartment guy." How's it going, Peter? How you doing, man? It's that retro guy. How's retro coming along? Oh, and then Frank said Peter also posted on Facebook something similar to what I asked you, Josh, about people sending links. Peter, you have to dish. Explain to me how that works. Let's see here. So, I'm curious, Peter, what your take on it was. All right, so I am kind of getting through this eyebrow. We're making progress, ladies and gentlemen. Drawing eyebrows like nobody's business. Peter is working on a comic retro. He's done professional inking for Image Comics, for Marvel, maybe not Image, but I know for Marvel, and I believe for DC. But he's definitely done quite a lot of. He's a vet in the field, has done quite a lot of stuff, and is now working on his own comic called Retro, which I think he inks during a live stream as well. So you guys should make sure you're following Peter. He also started the first iteration of the Artcasters back when Jeff was rocking it. Anyhow, so Peter was saying only 5 pages of inks left on Retro. Then everything else is good to go. That's awesome. How many pages total then, Peter? That's pretty exciting. And then Frank was saying, I used to use the plastic set a lot when I was younger. I didn't know what was supposed to be the good watercolors, so I just used the sets I find at the store. I was going to say, like, I mean, it's like obviously like for instance, my wife did a lot of she does kids books and stuff, and some of them are traditionally watercolored, and when you're trying to get certain colors and also certain effects and certain like just quality with like what results you're getting and more adaptability in what you can use, obviously getting like the really nice watercolors does make a massive difference. And actually in the world of paint, like the cost of like really expensive watercolors is like pretty low compared to like what the cost of like the highest quality like oils are, like if you get into oil painting, there's some times where you might be paying like 80 to $100 a tube, for specific brands. Whereas like with watercolor, you can get a very good set of watercolors for like $50, or maybe 80, where you're getting like a very broad realm of colors and stuff. But Yeah, so sometimes it does make a difference, but it's, to me, I think sometimes with cheap materials, the limitation and then also the familiarity with it can kind of allow for like some fun. And like I think because I don't watercolor a lot, um, when I have used watercolors, I did find myself sometimes using those cheap sets, just because they were fun. And I think because they were less intimidating too. And you're like, I don't know, it's almost like drawing on like cheap paper or something. Sometimes, like when you don't have the, I don't know, sometimes it's less intimidating working with cheaper supplies. So you can be a little more experimental and stuff. But I think if you were like really hardcore, seriously going to do watercolor, you probably at minimum want to get like Winsor Newton or something. Let's see. 28-page story. Nice. From my Facebook post. When I click on you, KSIGG photo post, it means I like something about it, the art, design, people working on it, etc. Or simply just to support. For you then to direct message me with a link, I could find the link on my own. Thanks. That was my intention. I certainly don't have the money for every comic project I come across. 100% understand that. Yeah. And I think especially, again, like, I feel like if it were like Peter DMing me a link or something, I'd kind of get that, because it's like, dude, I kind of want to know when your stuff's out, and like I know you. We've been in similar circles for a long period of time, so it's like it wouldn't be as weird as like just some random person that I don't know, like just kind of cold emailing or messaging. So yeah, I definitely feel you on that. That's funny. We just talked about that take because Frank was chatting about it at the top of this stream. Let's see. I knew it. Okay, I was starting to feel a bit zonked, and I think I need a refill of coffee. And for anybody who's watched my live streams, you'll know that's like my internal clock, where it's like every hour I have to take like a 30-second break to just kind of refresh. So I am going to refill my cup of coffee. And we're getting there slowly on this on this page, which shouldn't be too bad. So I'll see you guys in a few. I'm excited that so many people are hanging in the chats, and I will be right back. Okay.
Are you guys wanting to go to?
Well, I'm still streaming, so. And I'm gonna finish this before we head out. All right, I had my little break. Speaking of DMs and stuff and spam and all that, I will ask, because we've got some cartoonists and artists in the chats and stuff. Not to create like a long spam list, but people can watch this after the fact too. So please drop links to what you're working on, like right now, in the messages, just so everybody can actually check out what you're doing. Because I do think, part of our channel is about like, at least my channel is about like supporting other artists and like knowing what exactly they're working on. So please feel free to kind of, obviously don't spam it, but drop your link in. I'd like people to see where to find retro too when it's done, and where to find bone meal and all that fun stuff. So yeah. Let's see. Jake said, I am not comfortable to strike up in the DMs about my stuff and will push for email listing when I get my site together. Yep. I reserve DMs for like people I know. That's basically, I don't know if that makes sense. So we are making some progress. Inking eyelashes, guys. It's always fun to do. Like, to me, like these big close-up panels are almost like a break. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like environments take a long time to ink. I'm curious, actually, Peter's take on this too, because Peter does a lot of inking. And it's like, to me, if it's like a close-up panel with like a heavy detail on an eye or something, it's like that's fun and just kind of like very familiar. But then like when it's like an establishing shot where I have to do like a cityscape or something, like now we're talking like labor. But what's interesting is I know artists who like view it the reverse, where like people are tough and like environments they enjoy. I'm definitely like on the other end of the spectrum where it took me a long time to like really start drawing environments. And most of learning how to do it was out of necessity, where it was like it just makes a story a lot more convincing and exciting to have the environment. Let's see here. Frank, you liked my gold embossed retro figure. It's only $400. Send directly to PayPal at your earliest convenience. And then Frank was saying, hey, I saw you liked my Mask Woman t-shirt. I'll send you the link. Yeah, it's tough too because it's like, you know, I'm curious what you guys think about this too. I like hanging out with other artists, and I love the fact that we all support each other and stuff. But I also feel like we need to like, we have like Squatch on an Artcasters, who's also a really cool dude and does some really great comics, fun, silly comics that are awesome. And he was talking about like kind of the importance of like marketing to more than just other artists, and I kind of like I definitely feel him on that because I feel like we all know like we're pretty like short on cash. Like most of us doing art are like kind of making ends meet, and of course we support other artists and stuff. But like Peter was saying, you know, it's like we have limited resources, so it's like I can't buy every book out there, you know. And I have a long list of like friends and other books that I really do want to pick up, and may just not have like the financial means to do so, you know. So like it definitely would behoove all of us to like, you know, pursue marketing outside of just to other artists.
I was just gonna say the best watercolor that I found is Holbein.
Holbein, that's the crazy awesome watercolors that my wife uses, which is pretty rad. She just let us know. Those are like the heavyweight, and they're really cool. Like the pigment, it's funny. It's like the second you even look at them, you're like, oh yeah, those are different. Like you lay down a wash and it's like radiant, you know. So yeah. And I will say, like back when I used to do oil painting, like the kind of more expensive, like better brand oil paints, like did make a massive difference. Where it's like you just, and I guess that translates a little bit to like inking. You know, like there's some off-brand stuff that just does not handle very well. Okay, let's see here. But yeah, Holbein is pretty rad. Pretty rad. Watercolor is interesting too, because even the paper. Now I kind of wish. I'll have to find out from my. I think it's the Arches block that my wife will buy. Like they're pretty expensive, but again, like the paper when you're watercoloring makes a massive difference in like the end result. So I will defer to her. I will say, if anyone has questions about watercolor supplies or anything like that, like my wife is my S. Kemble, and she does a lot of really like brilliant children's book art, and would be a good resource to ask. So definitely make sure you check out her art. She's a pretty skilled artist, and is flooded with work right now. It's been interesting. We've been talking about that, like where, you know, her building her initial like sort of client base and career has been like a slog to kind of make happen. And then this last year, so I've had that kind of same thing with like picking up steam with publishers and stuff like that. And it's like in the last year, both of us just went from like, yeah, you know, kind of getting by, getting occasional things here and there to like just flooded with stuff. So I think at the beginning of last year, she ended up getting about like, I think it was like 5 books or something. And then the weird thing is, whenever she completes a book, she has another client come and hire her. And it's just been consistent for the last year where there's always a queue of books that she has to get completed. And whenever something comes off the queue, something gets added on, which is a good place to be as a freelancer. But it's been a really fascinating year with that, like where I did a vlog like earlier in the week about like feast and famine, and it's definitely been like just crazy, like on like crazily true, where it's like you really do in this field like end up with either very little or quite a lot, and it rarely kind of comes in like steady phases. Like you're usually either flooded or you're completely dry for work, and which is a good lesson too, because like when you're working on this stuff, it's good to just try to like really enjoy and roll with like the feast stuff, because you never know like how long that'll last. And you know, like for me, like the just having multiple books, like that's an exciting place to be. It's intimidating, but it's like I really want to make sure I'm like taking advantage of the opportunities that I have and that I've been blessed with and given, because like who knows how long that lasts, you know. So all right, we're rocking some eyeballs, guys. All right, let's see here. Brianna said, I'm going to try a new medium, new for me, acrylic inks. I can't wait. The colors are so nice. I have wanted to delve into like acrylic inks quite a lot. Is that like the Dr. Martens kind of stuff? Because I have wanted to mess with that for years. And that is one of the few. I'd say that and like airbrushing are like the few things that I've never really tried as an artist, and always had like slight curiosity about. Airbrushing probably less so, but although when I see like, Jeff Lafferty like rocking these really cool like movie posters with like airbrush and acrylic and like paint and just kind of doing these crazy mixed media things, that definitely does make me want to like try out airbrush, because it's incredible what that guy does with the mixed media. Nice. And then Brianna said, I don't know, I have a Dutch brand, Amsterdam acrylic ink. Nice. And then Frank said, has Mai ever been on the Artcasters as a guest? Yes, a long ago. You would have to dig back through the feeds, but yes, my wife has been a guest. I have told her I'd like her to be a guest again, but she also tends to be like more hesitant to do like the social media stuff and like videos and things like that. And I understand that, because another main reason for that is like she's also just like super busy.
It's called I have social anxiety.
Yeah, and then there's social anxiety too mixed with that, which is not fun. So, but yeah, like we'll have to try to get her back on. She did an episode where she talked about children's books, and I think people found it really helpful. Because she's been at it for a while with kids' books, and so it's always she's like a wealth of knowledge in that area. And then let's see, Peter said, I want to get some acrylics and just paint. Maybe when my schedule is down a bit. Yeah, I've kind of thought about when I'm done with Two Stories Book 2, I've said this for a while, because this is going to be 100 and something pages, like 130 or 140 pages. And when I'm done with this, by the time I'm done with this, I'll have completed another graphic novel on top, like with it. So I kind of feel like I like the idea. We'll see how things pan out, but I do like the idea of whenever these books are finished that I have on the dock right now, like maybe taking like a month and just painting. That just sounds super fun. It might even be fun to like bust out the oils. The only downside with oil to me is terpenoid and turpentine, because like terpenoid is supposedly like odorless turpentine, but that's not the case. There is no such thing as odorless turpentine. And so like that's the only thing that sucks about oils to me. Like I love working in oils. When I painted, that was my favorite thing. Doing kind of like wet on wet with oil, but the downside is the setup and the cleanup, and then also just having an art space to do oils with, because like in art school, it's great because quite often you're going to be working in rooms that are designed to have like really good ventilation to work with things like oil paints. But, when you're working from home, you really got to be careful with those chemicals and stuff, because otherwise you might kind of end up getting really sick. So I like acrylics for that reason, because like you can kind of, for one thing, they're way more cost effective. And then for another, it's much more portable and durable and usable in any context, Let's see here. And then Frank said, search Artcasters children's books, and Mai's appearance is the top result. Yeah, so it was a good episode. She talked about SCBWI and all sorts of stuff, and then she just told me to stop talking about her, so we will But I will tell you guys, check out her work. It's really good. We
Getting nervous.
we met in art school, and so it's like it's kind of like one of those things where, like, before I knew my wife, I knew she could draw better than I can. She's a really solid drawer.
Made of oak and pine.
A drawer. One thing that's fun about having an 8-year-old is, like, I'm doing this live stream working on art, and in the background there is an epic battle. Like, there's always like this kind of giant epic fantasy battle going on, and it's pretty amazing, is all I'm saying. That's a pretty special thing that I feel I definitely need to value that while that's the phase. Because right now, for an 8-year-old boy, at least in our house, it's like he is constantly in these epic fantasy battles. And it's just such a neat thing to kind of witness and experience. Jake said, if you want someone to post links in the chats, you need a mod to share them. Oh, no. I don't even know how that works with mods. How do I, you know what, Frank, DM me on how to set up mods, because I would love to have, I'd love to have you guys as mods if you'd be down. That would be amazing. I didn't even know if you guys were being prevented from sending links, but I do like the idea of creating mods, especially if I start doing more live streams. So, like, yeah, Frank, I know you've moderated other communities and stuff, so hit me up, let me know. I'd be more than happy to designate some mods. And then he said, I know a simple way to do it, which is pretty exciting. So I think that would be really cool, especially if somebody would be down or interested in kind of rocking that business. Oh my gosh, I just realized I was doing like half my inking there off stream. Move my page a little bit. So this method of working was so interesting for me to like discover, because I used to not use a lot of hatching, and you can actually see this in if you guys do pick up Jacob's apartment. It's done in a little bit of a different style than the style that I'm doing 2 stories in. And I don't know how I arrived at like kind of doing this cross hatching with a brush thing, but I really enjoy it as a process. And I was really surprised personally that I was able to get these like tiny little hatch marks with a brush. And it's a lot of fun because you have kind of like some variation in thick and thin. Oh, and then Peter said you need to go to your YouTube channel and click on people's names. Mod option comes up, and Peter was saying he'd be down as well. That would be awesome, you guys. I'm gonna look into that. I probably won't be able to like set that up right this instant, but I think after the stream, I'm gonna really look into that and try to set some mods, because that would be cool, especially if it helps with growth and helps kind of keep the community going and all that fun stuff. Let's see. Hold on a sec. I believe. Okay, I'm getting a message that I got to kind of check out. This is regarding the mods.
Uh-oh.
Let's go to the App Store.
Oh. Okay, so I think that Frank was saying that he can mod and kind of gave me some suggestions too. So I will look into that. I'm gonna have to mess with that. But what he sent me was very descriptive and interesting. And once I kind of get that panned out and figured out, I think I will create some moderators. Make this a legit live stream. I apologize. I get kind of boomerish when it comes to things like live streaming, like in the sense of it's like a technology that I'm just starting to get familiar with, and I obviously need to read up on it a little more to kind of make that happen. But that I think would be very helpful. So I appreciate it, you guys. That's good to know. All right, so we have some amazing things occurring here, you guys, with this inking. It is starting to take shape and take progress. And of course, is taking like 10 times longer than I envisioned. I feel like you guys should call me on the fact that as I start these streams, whenever I say like, oh, this should be simple, I don't know, we need to make that some kind of a meme or something, because it feels like that's kind of every process that I start on here, where I'm like, oh, this shouldn't take that long. And then of course it winds up taking like 10 years to execute, because comics take a long time.
This is basically just regular Angry Birds, but it's actually AR.
Let's see here.
And
You could still play it?
yeah, I was able to play it.
Okay.
Hey, we can just...
All right, I think Frank sent me some more stuff, so I want to go check that out real quick. And that kind of works out because I need to refill my coffee. So I will be shortly back. I hope this is coming along okay. I hope the eye is visibly coming out okay. I have a tear-soaked eye, you guys. And look at that. That's why I like traditional inks. You see that? That's why I also have this. I use this to avoid getting ink smeared all over the page. So I also should probably wash my hands so that I kind of remove some of this ink nonsense, and then we can get back to it. So I will be shortly back, you guys. I'm going to go wash my fingers, check out what Frank has sent, probably refill this coffee, and I'm probably on for another 30 minutes, I'm guessing. So I'll be right back.
Oh, where are you going to sit? In the yellow chair?
Quiz game. Point the camera towards a non-reflective section of local surface. Too close. Too close. Good.
One eyeball done. So I'll just have another eyeball to ink and then we can
Oh
get rocking.
yeah. Well, yes.
So, real quick question. So like Peter and Frank, if you guys are interested in being mods, like if I were to do that after this, like with the replay of the chat, then you could moderate all future streams if you're on. Because if that's the case, I'm definitely gonna like look into that because that would be super helpful and rad. So anyhow, I'm gonna have to kind of look into that, but it looks pretty simple, so I will try to make that happen.
And I think I just flushed those pigs. Where goes those pigs?
Sweet. I love that idea. I also slightly like, I don't know, it might be fun. Jake tends to show up on these streams too. So Jake, if you'd be interested, maybe we get you in on that too if that's something you'd be interested in. I was gonna refill my coffee, but let's see here. You know, I'll try to kind of make that happen. I am pretty pumped about this starting to work here. Let's see. It is fun. Like to me, like the coolest thing about inking is you kind of start and at least, especially when you're doing hatching, where it's like you start and it starts looking a little weird at first. And then it's like this gradual build. And I think that might be one of the most addictive things about inking is like you get to kind of see things take shape and form and like, you know, it's pretty rad is all I'm saying.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And then Dee Dee hooked it up with $9.99 in a super chat. Thank you. Appreciate it. And she said for the completion of that other eyeball. I appreciate that. I think that is well worth the $10. Thank you, Dee Dee. Also, I should mention you guys should be subscribed to Dee Dee's YouTube channel as well. And I'm not just saying that because she just hooked me up with some cash, but she does some really amazing live videos and does a lot of really fun stuff. So thank you. And I do have super chats, and I'm more than happy to take super chats. And I will read whatever nonsense or non-nonsense comes in a super chat, as long as it is safe for work and isn't belittling of entire groups of people or something. I will read it. But yes, I'm more than happy to take and accept super chats. And thank you, Dee Dee, for that. That actually acted as a real kick, like a real motivator. It's amazing how money works. Because it's like, I will say, it does act as an incentive to kind of keep a stream going for sure. I'm also excited because I have like a long run of these things coming up. And it's just any support that people give, you know, for me completing these crazy projects is muchly appreciated. So I thank you. And then Peter was just saying she's the bomb I was just mentioning earlier. Yeah, hell yeah. 100%. It's a neat thing to have like supporters, and I mean, I think Dee Dee has like backed me and Scott up on Artcasters for quite a few years. She's been like a long time viewer, supporter, encouragement. She supported like me and Corey during the 48-hour art check. Just a really good person who sincerely likes our community and likes supporting artists, and that's a very cool thing, is all I'm saying. Okay, so now we are rocking some more going here. And then Peter was saying, I'm working on it, because she's encouraging Peter to keep working on his books as well. I'm excited because I think Peter, is that like, to me, I feel like retro has been a really big goal of yours. And I think the fact that you're like 5 pages away from that goal is pretty exciting, man. Like 5 pages is nothing. I say that jokingly. 5 pages is a lot in comics. But to get to that point, man, that's huge. That is a huge accomplishment. All right. I'm wondering if my ink is running dry here. I believe that my son is rocking some apps right now. Does Corey have super chats? He's over 1,000 subs, so he should. I believe so. And I do think this is going to be interesting. I don't know. Maybe like after the stream. At some point, Frank, I might chat with you about that kind of stuff, because I even think for like Artcasters, it might help to have some moderators, and also like come up with like incentives for like super chats and stuff like that. And that's something I think like Corey, Scott, and I would really want to kind of like start pinning down or figuring out if there's some fun ways we can kind of get more of that kind of thing going with our channel. And I actually feel like, you guys are a really good resource to kind of figure out how to kind of go about doing some of that, which I have failed to even think about, honestly. So so close. Then colors, lettering, final script, production. And he said, I'll get it done. That's pretty exciting, man. Yeah, and I gotta say, like, that's one of the reasons I'm stoked about Jacobs too, is like there's something to be said for like actually seeing a final product go to print, you know. 2 Stories was like my first like finished full graphic novel, and just that minute that I first got it in the mail is like it's like a very addictive thing. Like having that moment, and I know you guys have had those moments too, but it's like when you actually get your book in print and you get to see like all your labor and work and like your book design and all the considerations and time like kind of there in a bound finished book. It's like there's something about that that's so cool. You know, and definitely worthwhile. So let's see here. Yeah. Frank was saying that would be cool. The Artcasters could start bringing in cash with super chats. It's just utilizing it more. Yeah, I agree. And I kind of feel like even just mentioning it would be helpful too, because we have a really like, I mean, you know, you guys are a part of it, so you know, it's like there's a pretty thriving little community we have. And I think the more we can do to kind of help it grow and like continue would be really cool. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Whoa, I missed.
I'm just excited too. Like that's all kind of due to you guys as well. Like, because I do think a lot of the growth that happened recently in my channel, where I finally got remonetized, has a lot to do with the live streams that I've done, and so I really appreciate that too. Just the ability to, like, even if it's generating, like mild amounts of like pennies per video, it means a lot to like have pennies generating per video, and it's like, it's a very cool thing to have that, even if it's just like at the end of the day, just for like personal, a personal point of pride kind of thing. It definitely helps. And it's been fun. Like, I am still amazed. Like, to me, that's pretty incredible that, like, it's like noon on a Saturday, and I was like, I'm going to work on my comic. And then I was like, I haven't live streamed in a while. I should live stream it. And it's so fun to have, like, to me, this is why I love doing live streams when I'm doing art. It's so fun to like have a bunch of other cartoonists like show up and be like, yeah, we're working on art. And it kind of gives a lot of fuel to like the creative juices. I don't know if that like ties in, because I know, Peter, you do a lot of art streams too, and I don't know if that ties into like one of the reasons you do them too. But I have to say, it is really fun. It's like kind of like what I imagined, when I was a kid, and I'd be imagining like the Marvel bullpen or something, or like, Mad Magazine, and what it would have been like to like work with all those cartoonists there, and like all the antics and shenanigans that they'd get up to, like working with a crew of people. And like, I don't know, there is something about like working when live streaming that feels a little bit like that, or a little bit like art school, where we'd be like pulling all-nighters and working on art together and kind of goofing off and making jokes and stuff. I don't know. There's something really cool about that. And I am rambling, but I guess my point is that is pretty awesome. Encouragement means a lot, Dee Dee said. Yeah, I agree. It's like it is a commodity that I think people, don't value enough sometimes. Like, yeah, encouragement is everything for artists, I think. Let's see here. Oh, I was going to ask, actually, Peter, are you going to be doing your own colors, or are you going to have a colorist work on it? I was kind of curious how you're going about that, man. And he said the whole reason the Artcasters really took off was hanging out with fellow art nerds while we worked. Definitely fueled me on. Yeah, I had that same experience when Kevin and Jeff and Scott like invited me on it. Initially, I'll be honest, like initially I was like, well, I'm working on comics like too much to do this, but then like, and not saying that I would have refused it, because I was like really honored and flattered, but I didn't envision it being like something I'd be able to do. But then like I remember like the first few streams, and you guys can look back on those, like the first times they had me on, I just got so much art done. And it was like, it was crazy how much art I got done. And like without even feeling like I was working. It was a lot of fun. And I got really hooked on it. I was like, okay, I kind of have to do this, because it's like, it's such a fun community. And then also, again, just being able to get a lot of art done without it feeling like this crazy labor is just such a really like a gift, And then Brianna said, I'm still on a mission to find everyone on social media, an endless quest. Yeah, I can understand that too. And she just said she subbed to Peter. That's awesome. And then Frank said that was the reason I was able to get a comic out, drawing along as the artcasters talked art and also worked on stuff. Yeah, right? Like it's I think there's some truth to the idea of like the people we surround ourselves with can kind of very much have like a positive or a negative impact on like how we ourselves are. I don't know if that makes sense. So like being around people who are being creative and like putting out work and like doing the thing and like pursuing their dreams and stuff like that, like to me I think that's kind of contagious. And so like like being surrounded by that, or even like being able to do like a live stream like right now where it's like, I'm literally surrounded by people working on stuff and working on art and passionate about art and stuff like that. It definitely has like a positive impact on my own output, for sure. So have you guys ever Gary's here. Gary, we mentioned you earlier in the chats. It was all negative. I'm just kidding. It was all positive. How are you doing, and how's DVSM coming? That's Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. You guys, which you should check out. Very good comic. And then Dee Dee's following Brianna, which is awesome. So, exactly. You speak of the devil, and they arrive. How are you doing, man? Like, I hope it's coming along good. And then also, where are you at on it now? Are you still kind of working on the photos and the kind of creating the 3D assets and stuff? Gary has a really meticulous process with his comics that's like really inspiring and cool. And also, speaking of subscriptions and stuff like that, you guys definitely need to subscribe to Gary's YouTube because he's been posting a lot of process videos and videos that are like thoughts about Dinosaurs versus Marsbots and the structure of it. And one of them, he actually broke down like the Excel spreadsheets he uses to kind of like break down panels from a script. It's like super inspiring. And so I encourage people to check that out. And then Frank was saying DVSM sounds like devious S&M. It kind of does. That's why you have to kind of really clarify like Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. He said, doing okay, spending the morning helping my girlfriend move. So now I'm recharging before working on page layouts. Yeah, moving. The age folks like Gary and I are, moving becomes, I'm sure you guys all have a similar vibe with it, but it's like there's an age where like helping people move isn't a big deal. Like you're kind of doing it for friends all the time. Quite often it's like an arrangement where they'll be like, hey, I'll get you a case of beer, or like, or buy you pizza or whatever, as a thank you for like helping me move. And then the older you get, the more like moving just becomes like this nightmarish, I never want to do this again kind of scenario. Let's see here.
out
Oh, okay.
of.
Let's see here. And then Dee Dee was asking you, Gary, what your Instagram is. It's good to have.
It's not even on there now.
Gary was saying, yes, I'm officially at the age where helping move is sort of my day. Yeah. Right? I don't know. Like for me, that is definitely something you do for a girlfriend or a very, very close friend. But it's like something I'm way less likely to be like, yeah, I'm there, I'm helping you, like, because moving places. Although I do have like a tight knit group of friends that we've all helped each other move, over and over and over again, and I will show up at their door to help them move anytime. Because they've done the same for me. And at this point, it's kind of like we've all agreed to go through this horrible experience together. That's a good question, Frank. Did you get pizza? You better have gotten pizza or free beer out of it. And if not, I think you might owe the movie a follow-up saying, hey, where's my pizza? And it better be like some really awesome artisanal style pizza, you know what I'm saying? Just make that move worth your while. Donuts. Well, I don't know. Were they like at least hipster donuts? They better have been hipster donuts if you're getting donuts for a move. It's better be quality donuts. Better have some cronuts in there or something.
Make sure to keep it that way, okay? Just for your thing.
All right, let's see here. Oh, Gary said they were legit hipster donuts. Okay, good. Okay. Then the debt is paid. The debt has been paid. That's good. I'm glad you were dealing with a fair moving situation there. I got to get to the other eye. I will not quit this. I'm not going to quit this this stream until this other eye is done. Dee Dee said, did they have little goatees? That would be amazing. Like they're donuts with some facial hair. Of course, frosting facial hair. That would be pretty amazing. It has to exist. There have to be donuts with like little icing, like mustaches and stuff. These things have to exist. And if they don't exist, then I think somebody should look into creating some sort of online business based on mustache donuts. Gary was saying, yes, they had that and thick black framed glasses. I love it. So I'm glad you ordered the Buddy Holly. That's my favorite donut. I'm throwing that out there. This joke is not dead until we kill it, you guys. That's what we do here on this live stream is murder jokes. This is where jokes come to die. Okay, let's see here. All right, I've got to step out for 2 seconds. I'm going to get a refill of my Hipster coffee, and then we're going to rock and roll some more for this stream. Thanks to everybody who's joined me, and I will be right back. We're going to finish this eyeball. It's going to happen. Eyeball, you're going down. All right. I'll be right back. Coffee refill. Coffee refill. Coffee refill.
I'm saving the flowers.
All right, Mama Soto has joined us. Oh, I forgot my coffee. Hang on. All right. I'm going to keep the coffee on a side thing because I think we've all had that moment when you're inking and coffee. If you're an artist who doesn't have like a cringe moment where you're thinking of a coffee cup and your physical art and that moment of and then spill, good on you for not having that moment. I've definitely had that moment. There's quite a few pieces of art that I have that have some coffee stains on them. And it's a lesson I feel like I have to like relearn every once in a while. Like I will learn that lesson, take it to heart, and then a couple years later, forget the coffee stain lesson and have like a nice cup of coffee set very precariously next to wet ink and have that wonderful lesson relearned. Mama Soto said, I am coffeeed out. I'm trying to do some reverse psychology with tea because coffee is doing the opposite to me now. What's your go-to tea? My favorite tea personally is just PG Tips, just straight PG Tips, black. That's how I do my tea. And I found out, I think I've mentioned this before on stream, but this was a while ago. I was in Cleveland meeting with a buyer who deals with a lot of like rock stars and stuff. And not that I'm a rock star, it's just they have a lot of clients that are rock and rollers, you know. And I was making art for them, and we were having like food and stuff like that, and I ordered black coffee, and she said, "Oh, you are a smoker or an ex-smoker." And I was like, "How did you know?" And it turned out they were saying in their line of work, they deal with so many people who smoke because, you know, it's a lot of rock stars and stuff like that. And they were basically saying they learned that people who used to smoke or smoke tend to order black coffee with no cream or sugar or anything. And I have put that to the test since I heard it because I was like, that's fascinating. I hadn't thought of it, but it made sense. I like really rich beers. I like a lot of things like that. And yeah, just like to me, it's the same thing. Like with tea too. I like just black tea. I like those rich, like dark flavors. And some of that might be a byproduct of being an ex-smoker. Brianna said, I'm falling asleep at my laptop. Too little sleep last night. I'm going to go find my bed. See you all around. Lovely people. Well, Brianna, thank you for joining us when you did. And it was lovely having you. And you're always welcome back. So have pleasant dreams. And do cool creative stuff when you awake. Let's see here. Gary was saying, I must be the exception that proves the rule because I only like black coffee and dark beer, but never really smoked. Well, Gary, don't ever try a cigarette. That's my suggestion. Because that probably means you have the taste buds and personality that would be like, this is a really enjoyable activity. But yeah, that's good. That's good to know. There is an exception. Let's see here. Doing some eyebrows here, guys. Let's see. Ronnie sent me a link, and I think it's like a sneak preview of his stuff. So if I take another break amidst this working on these eyeballs, I might check it out and share it. Although he did say it was R-rated, so I'm not sure if it's shareable, but I will check that out when I'm able to like get back to the desktop in a second. But probably at my next like break or whatever. Let's see here. Yeah, I gotta talk. I don't know, Gary. I'm curious, Gary. How do you maintain steady output when it's crunch time on your comic? Because like right now, you're kind of in the thick of it. You're in like production mode. You're making your comic. What keeps you at it? And like, out of curiosity, do you have like a time that you use? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, do you have like a minimum time where you're like, I'm going to spend this much time a day? Because I know, Gary, you also like juggle a creative job full time on top of that. So I'm just kind of curious. I know you've talked about that before, but it's definitely on my mind right now. Because I'm kind of at a point where I think I bit off a lot more than I can chew, but I'm excited about that. When it comes to comics production. So, but if I think about like, Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots is like quite a few pages. These are not small books. And you've managed to have pretty consistent output with them. So I figure be a good question to ask. Peter said, friend just paged me. Gonna head on out. Have a great day. You too, Peter. Thanks for joining, man. I'll hit you up about the mod thing once I'm able to get over my boomer lack of understanding of that kind of thing. And yeah, but thanks for hanging. And then, all right, here we go. Gary said, self-imposed deadlines. I have dates and ranges in mind when I want to be able to be at different stages, and my preferred comic work time is weekends. Almost all weekend goes to the comic. There's a little work during the weekday evenings. Yeah, that's about where I'm at too. And of course, I was gonna say before Peter goes, make sure you guys are subscribed to Peter Palmiotti's stuff. He's doing some really cool stuff, and constantly at the art table. It's always a good thing. All right, let's see here. But yeah, I think that's kind of the only solution. Is like you kind of have to be doing weekends, definitely weekdays. I feel like weeknights I have to try to dedicate about 2 hours minimum. But then I also trying while failing occasionally. I did a vlog recently where I talked about, because it was interesting to me, like the idea that like as artists, I've given this advice too, especially to like new illustrators or designers, where it's like really important for you to think of yourself as a business, right? And often like that's brought up in like the context of like promotion and marketing and billing and like using contracts and all that kind of fun stuff. But it was like the other day I was kind of realizing like that should actually apply to all things, like including your own personal morale, right? Like, you know, if you think of what you're doing as like a business, at a business, you definitely want to maintain the morale of like the people who work for the business. And part of how you maintain morale, right, is making sure you're giving like vacation time, that you're, flexible around schedules, that you're empathetic, that you're kind of like maximizing like the environment so that people enjoy their job, and if you do that, then people will be more productive, right?
Yeah.
Point being, I just thought it was interesting that like I rarely think of that in the context of like my own stuff, like my personal art. I think I need to I need to kind of work that that kind of thing more often. And Gary said, I need to connect you to Geekdom Empowers. Jim has an interview out with him, and I talked to him earlier this week, and I think he'd be perfect for the show. Too late, Gary. I think I might have been the person who recommended you to Geekdom Empowers, so he's had me on the show. So that episode should be coming up. But I know like Jim, I think, recommended me. So it's either me or Jim recommending he reach out to you. That was a really fun show. And I will definitely let you guys know when my episode's up. But yeah, Geekdom Empowers was really cool and like super fun. And also like really hard, at least for us. It was hard for us to organize it because he's in Israel. And the night that I recorded with him was I also like connected him or recommended Corey and Scott too. So hopefully he'll reach out to them too. But he was trying to organize like with the time difference, which I'm really bad with math in general. So like we're dealing with like the crazy time difference of like the US and then like Pacific time versus like the time in Israel. And then it got really complicated because of daylight savings. So like my brain was blown just trying to figure out like how exactly are we going to arrange this thing. But yeah, Gary was saying it felt very grown up, for lack of a better term, talking to him, like being on Charlie Rose, but with but less touching. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. He's a pretty cool guy and also really inspiring dude, a writer himself. So yeah, yeah, that's a cool show. And I suspect that's pretty cool. I'm excited that you're going to be on it. We're going to have to, yeah, definitely like encourage that guy to like people to check out that show, because I think it's a really good show. If you guys haven't yet, that's another thing to kind of like possibly subscribe to, is Geekdom Empowers. It's a very interesting show that kind of gets into comics and filmmaking and animation and all that kind of stuff. I think my friend Ken Mora, who I'll be boothing with at LA Comic-Con too, was on an episode. So I think Ken, Javier Hernandez, Jim Lujan, and now Gary and me. So pretty cool. Let's see here. Oh, wow. StreamYard allows admin or co-host roles now. That's awesome. I didn't know that either. So, and then this says, we just learned that Peter still uses a pager. That's from Frank. That's so true. Anytime I hear about pagers, because I really enjoy A Tribe Called Quest. There's a whole song they did about the importance of a sky pager, and that's what that reminds me of. But it is very strange to think back to the era of pagers. We have seen a lot of like technical advancement in our lifetimes, I think. Yeah, Gary, that's true. Ken is probably the guy who kind of opened the floodgates for the Geekdom Empowers hitting our circle, which I think is really cool. I also have to say, I like that we have like a little circle, and I feel like we're going to be a powerful force that takes over the universe. That's just my thought on the matter. I might be a little biased. Mama Soto said, nice to see you guys. Page is looking great. Sorry, not been on much. Caretaking a parent. Got to get back to week and deadlines. Yeah, well, thanks, Mama Soto, for hopping on. And I know you always come on whenever you can. And also, Mama Soto has a really great Instagram that I would encourage you guys to be checking out, because she makes really cool art projects. And like, they're yeah, it's just very cool. Really strong designer, and also working on a lot of really cool like craft, like physical craft stuff that's like just really cool and artistic and awesome. I hope everything's treating you well in Texas, and yeah, it's good seeing you. Let's see here. Oh, cool. That's neat. I'm gonna look into that. Ronnie was talking a little bit about like some of the StreamYard stuff, which again, I think I'm gonna have to look into. But I do love the idea of getting some mods. I think that would be very helpful. All right, so let's see. I still have to finish this eye. I'm actually really digging the fact that Dee Dee rocked a super chat, which is really cool, kind of saying, this is for that other eye. And actually, I'm kind of thankful for that, because that is keeping me at the page and motivated. And that's pretty awesome. Let's see here. We're going to get this eye, you guys. We're going to get there. We're going to finish this panel. This stream shall not pass until this panel is done, because I owe that for that super chat. And also, my intention is to finish this panel anyway. Let's see here. But yeah, making the podcast and handling the Dee Dee said LOL and put like a little eyeball icon. She's like, I'm watching you. I know. Yeah, I need to figure out some things too. Like whenever we do Artcasters, Corey on his website has a what's new section. Every time he says what's new, I think of Tom Jones, the What's New Pussycat song. And if anyone in the chats wants to knock Tom Jones, I don't know. I question your credibility and taste. I'm joking. But I actually sincerely like really dig Tom Jones. And I need to figure out, and I think the one guy who would be able to figure this out would be Corey. I want to figure out how to have a sound drop, so the next time he says what's new, I could have Tom Jones pop on. So I don't have to think it. So like my thought can be an audible reality. These are the weird things I think of that I want to like make realities on live streams. And I think that one might be possible. I think it might even be possible on StreamYard. Like I could probably just have a loaded clip that I can just cut in when he says that. So that's a plan of mine. That's something I really want to try to make happen. I think I might have to write that down so I don't forget it too. Exactly, Frank. Exactly. That's just imagine, if he was saying, go to my website, click what's new, and then you just heard what's new, like right then. That's the reality in my world that I want to see happen. And then Dee Dee said, reading Elvira's autobiography, they had a fling. Tom and Cassandra and Elvira. Interesting. I wouldn't put it past Tom Jones. He is full of lots of exploits and shenanigans, I'm sure. Also, that sounds like a really intriguing autobiography. Is that on? I know this is a weird question, but it's like, do they have that on Audible? Because I have like some extra Audible credits, and I'm always looking for really good audio material, especially if I'm not live streaming. When I'm working on comics, it's like always good to have some conversation or some book going in the background. So if that's on Audible, I'm gonna rock that business, because that sounds like a fascinating book. Just also because you just wonder like what is life like being like Elvira. Like that's just a fascinating question alone. I recently read a really good autobio by the original singer of Black Flag that I think was called My Damage. It was so good and fascinating too, because again, you just kind of wonder like what's it like to be the lead singer of like the Circle Jerks and Black Flag. Like that has to be an interesting story, and it totally was. And then Frank was saying, is it read by Elvira? Good question. That's it. That would actually make for a really fascinating. And Dee Dee was saying she had a really rough time. Yeah, I'd imagine that's got to be a weird, unique, difficult career, So here we go. We've got our eyeball coming along, guys. And I just realized I need to move this over so you guys can see a little better too. Oh, it is on Audible, and she does read it. And she said, I'm reading the hard copy. That's awesome. I'm going to add that to Audible. Because that sounds super fascinating. So I think anybody who like follows my stuff or is friends with me or whatever, you guys know, like I have a pretty long commute to like get to my work. And that is when I usually will do like vlogs, but also I consume a lot of audiobooks. And so now I'm really excited to add a new fascinating kind of quirky audiobook. That sounds really cool. And it actually, I mean, I'm sure it's like a very heartfelt story and stuff, but it does sound like a bit of a break from some of the heavier stuff I've been reading as of late. So I actually would like that as well. Oh my goodness. Okay. How are we doing, guys? And then Frank was saying, yeah, that would make it more intriguing hearing her own words as she recounts her life. Yeah, I agree. There used to be a public access show in the area I live in, and I don't know how broadly it was made available. I think it might have been an LA area thing. It might have been unique to just like the weird edge of LA that I live in. But it was called Dumpster Piece Theater. I don't know if this exists anymore. I haven't really looked it up online, and I probably should, because nowadays with the internet, you can pretty much find out like, hey, there was this weird public access thing, and probably instantly find the answers to your strange questions, you know? But I loved it. It was this guy, he had like puppets, he had like a dark set with like a bunch of horror themes and stuff like that. And he would play like the worst, and by worst, I mean like the best, like old corny horror movies on the show. And it's very much like an MST3K type thing, but like way before that was even a thing. And it had like Elvira kind of vibes to it, like the late night, you know, showing of like a really corny horror movie. And I do have to say, like, I think like just being one of those people who like shows late night horror movies on a public access station, you know, is such a like unique and strange career, and not in a bad way. It's just like I instantly have curiosity about it, you know. We're being joined by Landon Huber too, who was saying, "Hey Joshua, how's it going? How are you doing, Landon?" Yeah. So anyhow, just because of that, I'd be curious to kind of find it out. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. But I always thought like the era kind of like almost like pre-internet era where a lot of people's access to like classic like B movies was on these like off stations where you get this like strange reception of like a late night host like who's kind of talking you through seeing these really unique strange features and movies and stuff. It's like it's just like a very unique experience that I don't know if it can be replicated, you know, in the age of the internet. Because I think back then, if you came across like a public access station playing cool stuff like that, you'd almost feel like you were in on like a secret or like a mystery that like no one else knew about. And I think there is something really cool about that. And the fact that like I believe, you know, I'd have to read the book, but I believe like Elvira is like a huge part of that kind of culture and that sort of thing. And I just think it instantly makes me curious, like what's that life like to do to kind of have that be like what you're doing, you know. What an interesting and fascinating thing that must be. And then Dee Dee said, every Saturday night here, Svengali. Nice. I'm going to look into that too. And then when you say Svengali, out of curiosity, does that connect to the Svengali deck? Because like in the Magic world, there's a rigged deck, a card deck that's used in magic tricks called like a Svengali deck. So it's pretty cool. Landon said, going good. I got to go soon, but good to see you streaming. Frank, Pete, and Jeff should all know who I am by now. In case you want to talk to them, take it easy and good luck with the rest of the stream. Cool. Well, thanks for hopping on. Let's see here. We have a bunch of early stuff going here. Oh, got it. Okay. Dee Dee was saying Svengoolie. Okay, I love it. That's great. That also sounds like, because I was like, I know there's like a famous Svengali like magician who kind of coined like I think we've all seen a Svengali deck. It's like it's arranged so that like one corner of it that kind of sticks has actual card numbers, and then the other corner like makes it look like the whole deck is blank. And I never really followed Magic enough to really learn the Svengali deck tricks, but they're pretty impressive, I think, for like a loaded deck. But Svengoolie is like, that's a perfect name for like a B movie kind of host, like a B show. And then Ronnie was saying, my mother-in-law and I watch it. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out, because I'd imagine nowadays you could probably like access that pretty easily, without necessarily like having access to like the TV for it. So I'm gonna kind of, now I got all sorts of stuff. I gotta check out like the auto bio of I gotta check out a lot of fun stuff, guys. So that's kind of the thought. Rubber chicken humor. I love that. That's a good point. Oh, and then Frank was saying that's probably where he gets his name from. I watched Svengoolie when I lived in Corpus, so Corpus Christi, I'd imagine. That's interesting. I kind of wonder if I saw Svengoolie, because if it was playing in Texas, because like Corpus Christi is Texas, right? Then I might have seen it as a kid without even realizing what it was. Sounds kind of fun. All right. I think rubber chicken humor can be some of the best humor there is. You guys, thanks to Dee Dee's awesome super chat, I might actually finish this eyeball. So I'm pretty excited. We're getting there. We're getting there. See, some eyes, you guys, starting to get there, starting to get closer. We had Project Terror in San Antonio, Frank. Interesting. My memories from Texas are so strange, though. It's funny. I used to live very close to like Fort Worth growing up, and I didn't realize this was like such a specific to Fort Worth thing. But there was a thing called the Mayfest, where every May they would do like bathtub races, and they'd have like a maypole, and it was like this giant thing. And of course I remember this pretty vividly because I was like maybe 5 or 6 at the time, and it was just so cool. But people would literally convert like a bathtub to like a boat that they would ride down like the river. It was really weird and kind of awesome and very like Texan. But I found out, like, I think a couple years ago I looked it up just because I was like, what is Mayfest? You know, and it was like a very Fort Worth thing, which made sense because we were like right around that area in like a little small house up there. So yeah, I have like these vague memories of Texas. I remember seeing Riverwalk when I was a kid. We went to the Riverwalk and visited that, and of course the Alamo. And I had like a little plastic Bowie knife that I got at the gift shop, which is kind of fun because for my day job, we now make like souvenirs for the Alamo and stuff. So as well as like a ton of other like national parks and stuff. But anytime I'm working on those souvenirs, I'm like, I get like a little kick from like, oh, when I was a kid, I used to, I went there a lot. I don't know, Frank, does the Mayfest thing sound at all familiar, or is that like more specific to like Fort Worth than like maybe it's way too specific to that area? I don't know if you guys do Mayfest. Let's see here. And then Frank was saying I bought a Davy Crockett hat at the Alamo. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that was there are some really fond memories from Texas. I also just remember the Indian paintbrush. There was a specific flower called the Indian paintbrush that was like a wildflower, and they would grow in like just these beautiful red flowers that would just like blow in the wind on like they grew all over the hills up there. There's a lot of like weird vivid memories I have from there. And then Frank said, I think it's more for bigger cities in Texas. I've never heard of Mayfest. Yeah. So I think it's mainly just those little specific sections. Fort Worth probably only. Dee Dee said, sorry, another Elvira reference. She was in a Pee-wee movie. There's no basement in the Alamo. Dude, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is easily like one of the best movies ever made. I'm just throwing that out there. So like people who might knock like a Pee Wee Herman movie, I don't know if you guys have ever seriously watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's probably one of the best. It's a great movie. I liked that recent one too. The recent reboot movie I actually thought was pretty good. And then Ronnie was saying, yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, it is. I think that was a Tim Burton film. But yeah, good times, good movie. I think it's kind of an awesome thing that there was a point in time where like Pee Wee Herman was like the biggest kids show on the planet, and it was like this weird like art house experiment that became, to me, I think like there's something really cool about that, like this weird artsy thing. Because initially I think it was like a kind of like performance art kind of thing, and then it became like one of the biggest cultural phenomenon at the time. And I just think that's so cool. It's kind of neat that in children's entertainment things like that happen, like where you have like people like a lot of people forget like how experimental and kind of wacky like Jim Henson was, and like just what that was as a show and how that became like this giant just thing, and that children's entertainment was how that came about. It's kind of amazing if you consider just how insane and like artsy like what Henson was trying to do, what Pee Wee Herman was doing. I think that kind of stuff is so cool, Oh, that's it. Dee Dee said she was the biker who wanted to have Pee-wee first before the bikers got him. Oh my gosh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. That is a great movie.
I just went to Jurassic World Live in a competition, and I've already lost 3 times in a row. I've already lost 3 times in a row.
So you guys, we're getting close here. I just have to finish this hair. I really want to say thanks to everybody who's like shown up on the stream, and thanks for the super chat earlier. That was really cool. Thanks for hanging out and like making conversation. It has been a blast. I'm of course going to stay on here till I get this done, but if you guys are new to the stream, if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you scroll through the chats for sure and see like where, you know, all of these different usernames of, you know, people within our art community that are constantly doing really cool things, and check out their links and stuff. I'd also ask that if you guys haven't yet, you know, consider picking up a copy of Two Stories Book 1. It's at a really reduced rate at Amazon. You can also ask your local comic shop to kind of order that. A huge way you can support is by pre-ordering Jacob's Apartment. There are links below that'll take you to there. You can also go to my website and just click Jacob's Apartment, and that'll direct you to places where you can pre-order and give you more information. So if you want to like get your local comic shop or your local box chain store to kind of carry Jacob's Apartment when it comes out in May of 2022, that's a good way to do that. Frank said in the chats, you can find Salazar Art Nation and the Tarako Creative Cast on YouTube, which of course makes sense. Dee Dee also pointed out, hey, when Frank and Peter mod, they can put direct links in for you, Josh, which is really cool. And she said having mods is helpful with live streams. Yes. That will be ideally where we're going to go as a channel. So I'm very excited about that. That'll be fun to have some mods. Yeah, I just really appreciate like you guys taking the time to kind of hang out with me on a Saturday afternoon and like hang out and create art with me. And like honestly keep me company while I'm doing this. Let's see. Am I forgetting anything? I might have started my end plugs a little too early because we still probably have about 5 or 6 minutes to kind of rock the rest of this panel. And I did promise at the beginning of this that I would do this panel and that it would be a very quick panel. I am excited to see how the mod thing kind of works out, and kind of making that a reality will be fun. You know, if you guys have any suggestions or tips for these live streams or for my YouTube channel in general, let me know. Also, feel free in the comments to kind of let us know what you guys are working on, and what your thoughts, least favorite parts of the stream were, and how we can improve kind of moving forward. Let's see here. I'm pretty excited though, and I really am stoked to have gotten this a little bit finished. So the last thing, so that's roughly what I did during this stream. Oh my goodness, my mic almost fell over. The last thing I'm going to do is just fill this area, and then we are going to call it. I'm actually pretty pumped about kind of a midday. And I will say also make sure you guys have hit that bell and that subscribe button, because I will probably be live streaming. I might even be live streaming again today. Because I have hundreds of these comic pages I need to get done. And so I do intend to be doing these more and more often, more frequently. And so, yeah, you probably want to get notified when that's about to happen. And then Dee Dee also said mods can help answer questions for you and help so you don't have to read everything. Hard to do when you start getting a lot of people in chat. Yeah, agreed. Like, if this thing grew, I don't know if I'd be able to maintain or keep up with that chat. So, which it does seem like we're growing as a community. And so I like that. I like that idea a lot. I love it. So we are going to finish this little spot, fill it up. And I appreciate also the advice, Dee Dee, because I know you've been live streaming for quite a bit longer, I think, in this kind of format. And so I appreciate the tips as well. That's super helpful. All right, so we have almost completed this page. And then I'm going to basically take my kid to the park. We're going to go do wild, crazy battles, epic battles in the park. And that'll do it. Thanks again, guys. Let me try to zoom out and give you guys a final picture of that. If you're curious too, obviously make sure you're following me on. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram because I tend to post a panel at a time, everything I'm doing. Yeah, all that fun stuff. So thank you. And I will see you guys on the next live stream. Much appreciated. All right. Bye.